Hello, my name is Richard Correa, and I'm going to be delivering the opposition rebuttal and closing now. My opponent demonstrates a complete misunderstanding of the rules of this debate upon saying that I had exceeded my allotted time, since the invite clearly states that I had 5 minutes to complete my speech. Also, my introduction is not counted against me, meaning that my time exceeded was negligible, and focusing on this aspect of the debate removes all educational value from the debate and actually harms the academic community more than it benefits it. I should not have to forfeit this debate, and my opponent should be held responsible to cover all topics discussed in my opposition constructive, including the information delivered after the 4-minute mark. I would also like to point out that by ignoring the last minute and a half of my speech, my opponent completely failed to argue my disadvantage proposed in the opposition constructive. Therefore, my opponent concedes that letting the federal government focus on heavily regulating revenge pornography will waste the federal government's time, therefore causing political turbulence and economic collapse. With this disadvantage held as true for the entirety of debate because of fiat, it is clear that the affirmative should not be passed in order to prevent these catastrophic ends. My opponent also says that our culture already discourages revenge porn, therefore bolstering my argument that revenge porn can be eliminated from society culturally as proposed in my counterplan, rather than waste our time having the federal government regulate something it doesn't need to stick its nose in. My counterplan also remains mutually exclusive, as it is impossible to keep the government out of revenge porn regulation and let the regulation occur culturally while having the government regulate revenge porn. This is obviously a complete contradiction. While my opponent reminds you of 2 victims, these are merely 2 people within the United States population. My opponent is expecting the federal government to occupy themselves with regulations that only affect a small amount of the population, and has not defended her argument in any way that the affirmative solves any significant harms. Also, my opponent argues that I dropped the purpose of her plan and that it was to help the victims of revenge porn. However, this is fine. I will concede what she says the purpose of her plan is because it doesn't hinder my argument whatsoever. My opponent is the one with the burden of proof to show how her plan will help revenge porn victims and has failed to do so throughout the entirety of this debate. Even if the affirmative proved this point, they would still fail to prove that aiding this trivial amount of victims among the population is more beneficial than other forms of policy making, such as economic reform and foreign affairs issues. The United States federal government could be much more productive with its time, and my counterplan proposes a way we can fix this petty problem while taking care of much more important issues at hand of international standing. My counterplan still allows for a prevention of greater harms to society and provides a greater benefit for society while remaining mutually exclusive, and my disadvantage was completely ignored and therefore conceded. After hearing all of the facts discussed, I am confident that you will render a fair and just decision in favor of the opposition and not pass the affirmative's proposal. Thank you very much for your time.